Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. This is your host Cody Potter. I'm gonna go over. Sorry, I had to do it. We're gonna break down the Commanders Chargers game. Hell of a game, man. The type of game that you're looking for from this team, man. They came out, didn't look very good in the beginning of the game. It was looking a little bit rough, man. But we're gonna get into this breakdown, man. So Chargers came out hot, man. You wanted to see the defense come out and set a tone early. That wasn't exactly the case, man. They went up 10-0 on us. We're about to look like it was about to be 17-0. Herbert was dealing, making plays as you see in the background right there. Hard fought game, man. You got to give it off to the Chargers, man. Justin Herbert's a hell of a quarterback. They got weapons. Quentin Johnston, he's having a hell of a season. Keenan Allen, he's consummate pro, man. Lad McConkey got their first touchdown, man. They got some ball players over there, man. Derwin James is a hell of a football player, man. Their offensive line is kind of in shambles, man. Amorian Hampton's a guy that I really, really, really like. They got every ingredient when they're healthy to be a team that's competing for a world championship, man. Regretfully, Rashawn Slater was not playing. You want to get every team's best matchup. Joe Alt was not playing. These are two players that they drafted in the top, 5, top 10 of the draft. Didn't have them guys out there, man. But hats off to the Chargers, man. They played a hell of a football game, man. Traveling out to California, both teams coming off of a, kind of a disappointing loss. The Giants, they got, the better of the Chargers because, first start for a quarterback, man, it's hard to go up against that type of thing for the Chargers, things like that. But, both teams traveling across the country. Washington needed this game, man. So, it's really, really exciting, man. There's a bunch of players that I'm going to get into about this game, man. I said it before in my pod last week, when I was talking about Washington. I thought that this was a pivotal moment for this team. You're really going to find out what this team is going to start looking like going forward. Everybody talks about the age. We have a lot of injuries. You could even say that we haven't even had our best 4 players on the team at one time this season, with Sam Cosmi out from last year, getting hurt in the Detroit game. Terry McLaurin, missing most of the offseason, things like that, man. Dan Quinn is a guy that I just love, man. You can tell these players play for him, man. You can see some adjustments on defense. Jordan McGee had some moments, man. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. It's the youth for me, man. Like I said, no matter what we do in this game, win or lose, it was going to be a defining moment for this season because without Terry, without Noah Brown, without Sam Cosmi, these players are starting to get healthy. They're going to come back, and you're going to start to see it. But all training camp, Jalen Lane making plays in training camp. When we were down 10-0, we got that fumble. Jalen Lane was wide open on second down. Jaydens missed him. Made a penalty on the next play, and then it's 3rd and 15, and then Jalen Lane comes through for a big 3rd and 15 play, man. And that's what Jaden Daniels does, man. He is the ultimate eraser, man. I can't think of a guy on any team that I've watched, this year and last year, when this team is backed up against the sticks, second and 15, 2nd and 20, 3rd and 12, whatever it is, man. Jayden is so cool and calm and collected that, I've seen this team convert these long down and distances against the sticks, and most teams do not have the ability to do that. You got to give it off to the Chargers, man. All the offensive line injuries in this game, they had the momentum, but, Quan Martin on the play, Quentin Johnston got the fumble when they were trying to go up 17, and they looked like they were about to, man. They made the play over the middle. Quentin Johnston fumbled the ball. Marshawn Lattimore picked the ball up, and just the defense swarmed yesterday, and that was the biggest difference in the game, man. And you could tell, man, we had a lot of sacks, a lot of pressures. This team is known to give up a lot of sacks and a lot of pressures in the last couple weeks because of all the injuries that they have on the offensive line. I mean, they're a very well coached football team, man. Offense, defense, special teams, man. Their defense has been rock solid all season long. I think that was the most impressive thing about this game was you saw Jaden Daniels and this team. They featured Bill, man. Bill had a friggin' game, man. Like this dude to average almost 8 yards a carry, 7.9 on 14 carries, 112 yards rushing, 30 some yards in the pass receiving. 2 touchdowns. Bill had himself a day, man. He's a guy that I've talked about a lot on here. So this is the type of game, man. But it's somebody that I really wanted to get into was Luke McCaffrey, man. Like this is a guy that it takes some stones to draft where we drafted him. Being a 4th round player. 4th round players, man, you need impact out of these guys, man. If you wanna turn a team around like we're trying to do, to be a 2nd overall pick, when we picked Jaden Daniels, because we were the 2nd worst team in the league, to make that type of catch, man, that type of throw. Last year we all as fans, we talk about the Jaden Daniels come out game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, I was saying before this week that win, lose, or draw, that the youth on this team was going to have to step up in this game. And it was going to basically transcend what is going to be the course of this season. And Luke McCaffrey with that catch, man. To be Ed McCaffrey's son, to be Christian McCaffrey's brother, that's how he's always going to get talked about until he makes it his own name in this league. Just hats off to this guy, man. Like that play. You're down 7-10. You just had a roughing the kicker penalty on a punt from deep in our own end zone. Gave us the ball back after we were trying to be really aggressive and drive down in a 2-minute drive to close the half. I mean, that Quentin Johnston play right there was pivotal, man. Because like I said, they were about to go up 17-0. I mean, they were in the almost in the red zone. Good play by Marshawn Latimer. Good play by Quan Martin to hit the ball, knock it loose. For the offense to come back, they fed off that energy, man. Jaden Daniels made a hell of a play right there. That was a big 3rd down, man, like to Jalen Lane. It just, the youth on this team is starting to develop, and that is what is going to be pivotal for this team because we are an aging team. But when you have veterans like you do, and they're learning from these consummate pros like Bobby Wagner, like Zach Ertz. Laramie Tunsil was brought in for a reason. Laramie Tunsil was playing all pro level football, man. Honestly, you can pick your guy, around the league, whether it's, Penny Sewell, whether it's Rashawn Slater, for the Chargers, or Joe Alt, who's going to be a consummate all pro level player. You knew who that guy was coming out of Notre Dame. Laramie Tunsil has been a guy in this league that's been a top tier guy, the Trent Williamses and things like that. For Laramie Tunsil to set the edge on that play, and then he did it on the other touchdown that Bill had. Both of them same thing, jet sweep. To the left side of the line, and man, Laramie Tunsil, man, he's that dude, man, just to seal that edge right there. And then you got Bates out there blocking, man, Chris Paul pulling. It's really exciting to see the identity of this team come together, man, because it really does start up front, man. You put the assets that we've put into the offensive line. Last year, we re-signed Sam Cosmi. The 2 players that this team has invested in long-term financially are Sam Cosmi and Terry McLaurin, and neither of them have been on the field at all this season. So to see this team 3-2, it's really, really exciting, man. There's a lot of bright things to come for this team, man. Making the stops yesterday on defense, man. You saw the defense swarming to the football, man. Multiple guys in on every tackle. And the 3 games that this team has won, that's how the defense has looked. Now you got to start being able to stack games. You got to be able to carry momentum and stack games, man. Deron Payne just showed in the screen, man. I love that guy. Like that dude is a game wrecker from the defensive tackle position, man. I think if I was looking around at the team right now, the 2 best players so far for the first quarter of the season are Deron Payne and Deebo Samuel. Jalen Lane has been really, really good on special teams. Deebo Samuel has been really, really good on special teams. Luke McCaffrey has been really good on special teams. Man, we're playing three-phase football, and that's really what matters, especially in our wins. Next week is a primetime game against Chicago. That's going to be, it's Monday night, man. You're going to wear the blacks. Last year you had the Hail Mary. Chicago feels like they had that game, and when they did, because they should have won that game. But you had a Hail Mary, and that was a big play right there that was called back because of the roughing the punter, man. And honestly, it changed the philosophy of it changed the whole outlook of the game, man. Because that would have been 17-7. That would have carried a lot of momentum for the Chargers. But they made the mistake, they made the penalty, and we capitalized on it, man, because we drove down, and they were talking about just getting into the halftime, down 7-10, and we didn't do that, man. This team is an aggressive team, man. They call an aggressive game plan. It's about being opportunistic, man. It's about having a quarterback that you believe in and saying that we're not going to just settle for playing the role. We're going to attack you. We're going to control, and we're going to dictate outcome a game, and we did that. The Luke McCaffrey play is about to play next, I'm sure, but just when you watch this team, man, just to make these type of plays, this throw and this catch right here, man, that is a season changing, career changing, like that's the type of play when you've made 2 weeks in a row, you've had 2 touchdowns 2 weeks in a row, as Luke McCaffrey has, third year playing wide receiver, second in the pros, third from Rice, 4th round draft pick, man, to make that play, man, that's a Terry McLaurin catch right there. And that's an asset that we have not had at all this season. So for Luke McCaffrey to step up in that moment, man, it's a really special moment for him, man. Hats off to him. Those are the types of things you want to see. There's always a lot of talk, after hard losses and things like that, when, we haven't even played a full good game, this season. The team's going to start coming around. But Jayden Daniels, week 1, the offense was pretty okay. Against the Giants. The Giants are still warming things up. They still got a lot of things going on over there. This defense is starting to come together. You saw this team starting to play with high energy. They're going to have to do that against Chicago. You're going to have to get Caleb Williams off his spot, man. But hopefully Terry McLaurin comes back. Hopefully Sam Cosmi comes back for this game, and that's going to be the start and the progression of seeing what this team can be collectively. Now, what can you do when you throw Terry McLaurin out there? Can Luke McCaffrey be available to make these plays now that Jayden Daniels is hitting him? He's starting to trust him. Deebo Samuel has been a constant. He's making the plays when his number's called. Honestly, I got to take my hats off to Deebo Samuel, man. This guy has always been what they consider a gadget player, and he was a really good receiver at South Carolina, and just because they used him a certain way in San Francisco, he has been a really good receiver for this team. Third downs, big plays across the middle, man. Strong hands. He's had a couple drops, but those were balls that get into his chest. But when he does catch the ball away from his frame, he has good hands. He's not the fastest guy, but he is a big, solid player, man. The way Bill was making yards after the catch, the way that Bill was making yards after contact in the run game, the way that the offensive line was blocking. You saw Bates come back in. He's one of the best run blocking tight ends in all of the NFL. You just saw that this team can realistically impose their will from the running game, and then everything that they do comes off of that. What I like is this team got down early and they did not stop running the ball. In fact, that they keyed into running the ball more. And that's staying true to your identity, man. I believe when you're winning football games, it's because you're staying true to who you are as a football team. This team stayed true to being, we're going to be physical up front. We're going to move forward with our offensive line. We have an offensive line combination that's working for us right now. Even without Sam Cosmi, I expect it to only go up. The thing for me is first 3 weeks of the season, we were talking about Josh Connerly Jr., our first round draft pick. You're not hearing about him anymore. It's almost like playing safety. When you hear about safeties, when you hear about cornerbacks, it's always when they give up a play. It's very seldom when they make a play. Well, Josh Connerly Jr. is now making plays because now that he's played against the Max Crosbys, he's played against, the Abdul Carters and the Brian Burnses, and he had three tough draws against Micah Parsons, early in the season, and Quay Walker and guys like that for Green Bay. Now you're not hearing about him, and now you're seeing this rookie play really, really good football at the right tackle position. Right tackle is a critical position because they get the key edge rushers 90% of the times. Most of the time, the right defensive end is the player, or the left defensive end is the player going against the right tackle. 80% of the snaps, that's usually the premier pass rusher in the NFL, because they want to go against the right tackle, because stylistically, most of the time the best tackle on the field is the left tackle. So they put the dynamic pass rusher against the right tackle, thinking they're a little bit more of a run blocker and things like that. That's more yesteryear, but teams are starting to realize that, and they're starting to really prioritize having two tackles. And you can just see it, man. Like Josh Connerly Jr. playing really, really good football, man. Wanted to shout him out. A lot of the players that I shout out and I talk about a lot are the youth of this team, because that is the identity of this team moving forward. We have made trades for veterans and things like that to supplement this roster, but the guys that I talk about constantly are guys that I wanted in the draft. We picked them, and it's really nice to see these guys having a really big impact here. Trey Amos. Honestly, people talk about Marshawn Lattimore. Oh, we need to trade him. He's a wasted pick. Teams are targeting him. Well, they're targeting him because Trey Amos is playing really, really good football on the other side. Now you see Mikey Sanders still starting to have the impact that he had last year. 2 interceptions in the last 2 games. These are the things. These are why you develop. These are why you take your lumps, putting young guys on the field. They start to develop. They find their confidence. It clicks for them, and the next thing you know, man, they're playing the level of football that they played in college, but they're playing up because they're playing in the NFL now, where it's more pivotal and there's pros. They're playing against pros, and not just maybe playing a pro every 6 weeks like they do in college. At the position that they're lining up against, and to get Trey Amos, to get Josh Connerly Jr., man, to get the impact that you're getting from these guys on the field. It says a lot about this team, man, and what they're going to be moving forward, man. This was a big, critical game for this team. You didn't run up the score. It wasn't no 45-point, whatever affair. The offense wasn't perfect. There were things. There were some critical lapses. That led to a field goal in that drive. Where we just saw the field goal. A couple penalties held us back. Procedural, operational things. Delay games, not getting set. There's still things that this team can do to improve on, but you saw the defense rallying to the ball, saw the offense, dictate what they want to do and play to their identity. That's what you want from this team. This defense has got to be opportunistic. They're going to give up yards. They're not a complete defense. They don't have that elite level pass rusher. They don't have dynamic bookend, pass rushing guys, but they get there with numbers, man. They get there with Dorrance Armstrong, who's playing at the best level I think I've seen in his career. 5 sacks in 5 games, man. He had 5 sacks all the last year. So, you're getting plus level impact from a guy that's on a pretty team friendly deal for, an edge rusher. He plays pretty stout against the run for a guy that's his size, in the 250 department, 6'3", 250. You've lost Javonte Jean-Baptiste, you lost Dedrick Wise, and those were guys that, can set the edge in the run game. So you saw this team do very, very good against the run in this game, and it's just I'm just excited. We got to start stacking games now. That's really what it is. It's about being able to carry momentum. It's about not getting too high, getting back to work, getting healthy over the course of the week, giving the veterans rest, which is something that Dan Quinn is always really, really good with, and it's gonna be a really good year, and it's gonna be a really good year because of the development of the youth. You're gonna get Terry McLaurin back. Terry McLaurin is going to start being Terry, and you're going to start making plays more consistently, like you're used to seeing. I think it's going to glue this offense to a level that we haven't had this year, man. You haven't had Terry McLaurin and Debo out there, both of them making impacts, and then you add in the Luke McCaffreys and the Jalen Lanes, who are showing that when their number is called, they can make the plays. Bill, this is the first time he's even really gotten carries in the first quarter of a game. Now you got that dynamic weapon at running back, which we have not had in years. I mean, honestly, this is the most dynamic that position has probably been since Alfred Morris with RG3, and it wasn't because Alfred Morris was dynamic, it was because RG3 was dynamic. Bill himself is actually dynamic, man. He's a really good running back. You saw him put the ball on the ground right there. That was kind of more on the blocking. You still got to hold that football, but for him to come back and then finish the game out the way that he did and still had the impact runs and the impact plays, it just shows you that this is a guy that protects the football, man. He's a guy that the coaches trust. The play just got blown up very early, right when he got the ball. It's a thing that happens in football. He did what he needed to do by coming back on the field, playing calm, doing his job when his number was called, and it's what you want to see from a pro. And for all the things, Bobby Wagner was flying around. You got to see Jordan McGee getting pressure on Justin Herbert. Those are the type of things that, I've talked about it with Jalen Lane. I've talked about it with Luke McCaffrey. I've talked about it with Ben Sinnott. The same thing goes for Jordan McGee. Same thing goes for Jerzon Newton. Mikey Samerstill's interception came because Jerzon Newton got his hand up. You got Javon Kinlaw, you got Deron Payne, but Jerzon Newton is next, and you want him to be on that rotation. You want him to have an impact, and he did yesterday. In fact, it was in a big moment where where the Chargers really could have came back and got themselves into the game and been a field goal down. Well, we stopped them right here with Jordan McGee, closing the lane, showing that he belongs in this league. He's getting comfortable. The game is slowing down for him. These are the types of things you got to see from these young players, man. Like, it was 2 players back-to-back from last year's draft class having an impact. In fact, it's 3 of them because Mikey Samerstill made the pick and Jerzon Newton made the block. Jerzon Newton and Mikey Samerstill were back-to-back picks last year in the second round. Jordan McGee made the play before, 5th-round linebacker out of Temple. Showing he belongs, showing that when Bobby Wagner is, no longer available for this team and he moves on and, makes his way to the Hall of Fame, we have a guy that can play that position. Kane Medrano is a guy, that has a skill set being able to cover tight ends, and his speed playing wide receiver and then switching to linebacker at UCLA. That's a guy that you're going to start hearing about on special teams. He's a guy that you're going to start hearing about on defense, probably come next year. I said it after the draft that I don't think you see much of an impact from him this year, why he learns and he develops and gets into the speed of the game. But working out and playing, practicing and things like that, he's going to get reps eventually. And he's going to take some lumps. You're going to see him miss a tackle or 2. You're going to see him do whatever. But over time, you're going to see him start to make that play. For this team to drive this drive, to close this game out, 7 minutes in the game, to control the clock, drive the length of the field, kill the clock, and then, come away with points, to seal the game, at the end of the game. It just shows that this team is built for more. This was the first time that this team showed everything that they did last year was no fluke. This was the first time that you saw this team play 3-phase football, 4-phase football with the coaching. You could tell Cliff was in his bag. You could see Joe Witt had, figured some things out and played different players in different packages. Teams are going to adjust to this going through the season, and we're going to have to adjust to that as the season goes on. But it was nice to see the coaches and the players, make an impact, from the adjustments that the coaches obviously saw from the first quarter of the season and implement in this game against a team that can go to a Super Bowl when they're healthy. I believe the Chargers have that kind of talent on that team. Yesterday, you saw Hampton go down. That they're dealing with some injuries on offense. We were able to get after Justin Herbert. We needed to do that, but we caught this team at the most opportune time. But no matter whatever their offense is, that defense is legit. And our offense showed that we can play and we can have that type of impact. And that's what you're looking for, because this is the type of defense that you're going to play in the playoffs. And you got to be able to beat them types of defenses, man. This is the type of defense that Philly has. This is the type of defense that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers implement. It's the type of defense that, the Detroit Lions have. This is the type of defense that you're going to play if you play an AFC team in the Super Bowl. Like this, this is what you're going to go through, man. This is what Green Bay is throwing at you. This is what, you have to be able to produce and have really good, impactful offense, mistake-free football, which is what we did. 1 fumble on the ground by Bill. We made up for it. It was just a really, really good game, man. Really, really like to see what I saw. It's tight to come in here and talk about a victory, be 3-2. It's on to Chicago. Caleb Williams, number one pick. Jaden Daniels, number two pick last year. We're gonna see what this matchup has to offer, man. I'm very excited to see. Thank you guys for checking out the pod. It's nice to have the win. I'm gonna get into my college breakdowns. Miami U beat Florida State. That's always good, man. It was a good week of football for me. I'm gonna get into some prospects, man. A lot of guys that I threw out there have really, really big games last week from my college football pod, and like I said, I just appreciate you guys sticking around and watching, man. It's Commander Space Pod, but it's really, really about the scouting from college football and the building and roster development things and things like that. It's just the things that I really enjoy doing. It was nice to get a win. It's on the Chicago Monday night, so it's a long week. I might even be able to throw more into my college this week before I do my Washington look ahead, and that'll be fun, man. I got a lot of prospects that I've been breaking down and grading, man. So, I got more to come, man. I appreciate you guys checking out the pod, man. It's the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. Thank you guys for coming around. Peace.